give to you high. All you gonna do is open your mind, take a ride and let deep dive into your life.
Well, hello. Today, I'm going to try to paint a picture for you of what it would be like to have a mother who has borderline personality disorder. And it's only a 15-minute video, so I'm definitely going to miss some things. And I'm not professing to know everything there is about borderline personality disorder. I can only tell you what I've observed, what I've read, what I've learned, and just try to paint a picture. Now, you have to keep in mind that every person is different, even if they have borderline personality disorder. And they may have some traits that are similar to each other, but each experience is still going to be different to a certain extent. If you have a mother who is a low-functioning borderline, that's probably going to be a lot more difficult than if you have a mom who's very high functioning. And by high functioning, I mean they can keep a job, they can go out into the world, they have learned how to control some of the behaviors that can be toxic, or they've learned some coping skills and can get along with people to a certain extent. It's just not as toxic. They're going to make sense on a lot of things. You may not even be able to tell sometimes that they even have borderline personality disorder. But if you have a mom who has this disorder, there is going to be a lane more than likely of damage, I should say. There's going to be something, whether you become like a hypochondriac, or you experience abandonment fears in some way. And this is even if you, let's say you don't develop borderline personality disorder, like you come out of it, maybe you have a dad that's in the house that balances everything out, and so you don't develop it yourself. That's a huge blessing, but you're probably going to come out of it with some type of damage. You're probably going to be codependent. You know, people who are codependent, it's like, where do I stop and you begin? Borderlines, their identity can be in you, and who you are, because they're going to struggle with their identity. They're not going to be able to tell you what their personality type is, or like really be able to give you a clear definition. But anyway, you can check out some of my other borderline videos. I'm going to try to stay focused because, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of different angles that I could talk about. But a borderline mother, let's say she's pretty high functioning, she's probably going to have a greater capacity to love. Let's say she's, you know, maybe you had maybe the borderline mom used to go into rages when they were younger, and they've somehow learned or gone to therapy, and they've learned how not to do that. They may spoil you. Like, you may get hundreds of toys at Christmas, clothes, everything you ever wanted. They can kind of spoil you. They may not be the best at disciplining or setting, you know, you might be able to get away with some things in one sense, because they may not, that might just not be their strong area. Not to say that they won't, but they can have emotional dysregulation. So that doesn't mean that they're not going to scream and yell and have tantrums occasionally. Emotional dysregulation, I've done a video on it. They do have trouble regulating their emotions, which is why sometimes they could look like they're bipolar, because they can go into screaming, raging fits. They can, I guess that's where it could be confusing for a borderline child, is sometimes they're not going to understand what they did wrong, because borderlines can be very touchy. They can be easily triggered into getting upset. They can take some things and blow them completely out of proportion. You might say the simplest thing, and it's not all the time. And I think that's why sometimes people have difficulty with getting along with borderlines, because one moment things can be okay, and the next, you buttered the toast wrong, and you did that to offend me. I mean, so it can be very tricky and confusing growing up in a borderline household, because sometimes you can swear you didn't do anything wrong and you're getting attacked. So what does that do for your self-esteem? You might learn to daydream, to escape, to kind of act out your problems. I did a video on maladaptive daydreaming, where you daydream constantly or whatever. So there's gonna be an area, even if you escape becoming a borderline, there's going to be an area where you need healing, deep healing. I actually wrote a book called The Workplace Narcissist by Tamara Zyon. I'll put in a link in the description box. But I'm starting to believe, actually I do believe, that there's a such thing as a workaholic borderline personality disorder, because I've seen this type so many times. I just don't know if I have the stamina to write it, but stay tuned. I might just do that. But borderlines that are high functioning, some of them are workaholics in the sense, and it may not be just I'm at a job all night long. It might be just the way that they push themselves, the amount of things that they're doing, the level in which they're doing them, the intensity, the amount of things that they're doing. Some of them want to stay insatiably busy, and I think that probably helps them to cope. It helps them to feel real and not feel so empty, to steamroll over that bottomless emptiness or loneliness. But it can be extremely hard to keep up with. And to me, what's interesting about that is that I once thought borderlines were had too many, I guess, problems or layers to their personality that caused them issues, that they didn't have stamina or they couldn't complete things. And I'm finding that is not the case for a lot of borderlines. They can be phenomenal workers. They can rise to the top in an organization. They can be tenacious with trying to understand what their job is. And they can be given all kinds of promotions and all of that. So that's not true, especially for a high functioning mother. They can also be very fearful and worried about safety, very jumpy. One thing you can do if you struggle with accepting that your mom is a borderline, some of them kind of act like sixes on the Enneagram. So they're just going to have a couple of areas that are a little bit shaky, that you may not see all the time, but you can also think of them as sixes. I think sixes on the Enneagram are incredibly charming. These people are going to have something about them that draws people to them, and it might be nature's way of helping them get their needs met. But they usually have incredible personalities, like bigger than life. You're probably going to see celebrities who are borderlines because their personalities are just off the chart. So these people are going to have something about them that is different, that's unique, that's special, that people are going to be very drawn to. But anyway, Sixes have safety issues and fearful issues. So if you have them to read the six, they're going to relate to that because they can be jumpy about what's that noise? Shh, what's that? Or you say, oh, wait, I hear some, what is, just really. And so they're going to transfer some of that to their kids. So their kids are more than likely going to be adults that are always kind of looking for safety or trying to make sure that everything is secure and okay. Because remember, these people are survivors. So a high functioning mom is probably not going to act out in the same ways as a low functioning one. So they've had to learn ways to be safe because there's been some type of trauma in their childhood, whether it was, I got to take care of everybody because my mom is an alcoholic, or so they are generally the ones who are going to be taking care of siblings and wondering why their sibling is so low functioning, so mean, so disrespectful, because they probably have siblings that just didn't have the coping skills that they somehow had. And it could be because of their birth order. They may be the oldest born. Remember, in this video, we're kind of talking about high functioning moms because they can kind of still make sure that you are okay. Like they're going to put raising and taking care of you at the top of their list, and they're going to do a good job. A lot of these moms are really great moms in many, many ways. They are street smart. They can be kind of tough, but that doesn't mean that they're not polished. They're highly intelligent, the best at speaking or whatever it is. Like they have finesse, they have charm. So it's not that they're gonna necessarily come off as rough and tough. It's just they're probably not going to be scared of people that most people are. They can make up for their shortcomings as parents because they are aware, and they do have a deeper capacity to care for others. So they can be extremely sympathetic and empathetic, unlike the workaholic narcissist. They have a much deeper capacity than most people to care for others because they understand how they feel. So if someone is hurting, they can have a bottomless pit for helping that person to feel better. It doesn't bother them. They have a bigger capacity to help other people. They may be very acts of service, driving around, helping people. It doesn't bother them. It doesn't drain them. They can get their feelings deeply hurt because they feel like they're helping a lot of people, and they may experience people turning on them or not understanding why somebody doesn't want to be their friend, or why they're snapping at them. Sometimes they don't have the capacity to look inward in certain ways when it comes to, like, if they're having moments of emotional dysregulation, they can become very shaky, like shaking and yelling at somebody. That borderline mom is still not going to be so in touch with their own actions. Well, I can't tell you who I am. I don't know how larger than life my personality is. They may not even like themselves so much, even though they can be extraordinarily confident. Let's talk about the adult child of a borderline parent. A sensitive child will grow up recognizing a sadness or an emptiness that's unquenchable in their parents. Extremely painful. That's why a lot of them become very codependent, and they can act that way with other people, where they feel very intensely for the self and for others. And so they have a bigger capacity also to help people emotionally, but they can neglect their own needs because that's what they learn to do. They can also be on heightened sense of alert at all times because they have learned to be, not know when that borderline parent is going to go off. So they can also develop abandonment fears. They may not be as intense as a borderline, but they are triggered in relationships or in some area of their life. Have intense anxiety, be enmeshed with a parent, unsure of how to handle things, or overly moody or emotional. Bye, everyone.